The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 24th chapter. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find a body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood before them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb, stooping, and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves, and then he went home, amazed at what had happened. The Gospel of the Lord. Will you pray with me? Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Brothers, I'm sorry I can't be with you this morning, but circumstances have just forced me to be with my family this week. As most of you are aware, my mother is in hospice and she's on her deathbed. But I did want to bring to you this morning a message of hope. I wanted to greet you on this magnificent Easter Saturday. And tomorrow, when the church gathers, the priest or the pastor or the minister will stand in front of people and he will say, "He is risen," and the congregation will respond by saying, "He is risen indeed." That's what the church will be proclaiming. He is risen. So what? So we come to believe, but I want you to pay attention to the story that I just read. We say he is risen, but they're confused. They don't know what's going on. They don't get it. The women have gotten up and they've taken up a mission to bring and anoint the body of their fallen leader. But when he's not there, they get another mission, don't they? Go and tell the others. And they go and tell the others, he's not there, he is risen. And the reaction of those who are hiding in the upper room when the women come to tell them is they think it's just an idle tale. Women doing their chit-chat. Nonsense. It's balderdash. They have arrived with a story that is, simply put, too good to be true. And we all know that when something is too good to be true, well, we shouldn't believe it. But maybe, if we're willing to hope for something better than cold death, wondering, hoping, believing, not yet, not really. Nothing in our gospel reading makes me believe that the women or the disciples suddenly believed just because the tomb was empty. There's something more that they needed. And maybe something more that we need than simply an empty tomb. We need a risen Christ. And maybe that hasn't been your experience. Or maybe you did, but you forgot it. And maybe you show up on Easter anyway. A lot of people do on Easter. It is one of the two big experiences in church life. There's a comic I recently saw online. Pastor saying, "Should I do the graphic, bloody crucifixion description again for the big Easter crowd, Jesus? Really hit them with the suffering you endured on their behalf?" And Jesus says, "No, not again, Joe, please. They know I suffered. And the people who don't hang out with me don't need some R-rated gore fest or guilt trip." The pastor responds, "But these very people need a message, Jesus. They're there on Christmas and Easter only. What do I tell them?" And Jesus responded by saying, "Welcome. Good to see you. How have you been? The things people say when they haven't seen each other in a while, Joe. And tell them Jesus says hi. So maybe you're here because it's Easter. I used to go to church on Easter before I joined a church, before I became a believer again. And I went to church on Easter because Mom wanted me there. My wife wanted me to go to church with her. Easter service was, for me, a chance to get brownie points for the women in my life. Now I believe, then not so much. Maybe that's your experience. And it will bother you off and on like a rock in your shoe, or it will startle you like the first crash of thunder in a summer storm. Or it will lodge itself beneath your skin like a splinter. Or it will show up again, that uninvited guest whose heavy footsteps you'd recognize anywhere, appearing at your front door with a suitcase in hand at the worst possible time. Or it will pull you further out to sea like a riptide, or hold your head under as you drown, triggered by an image, a question. Something the pastor said, something that doesn't add up, the unlikelihood of it all, the too good to be trueness of it. And you'll be sitting there not believing a word of it, not a word. And so you'll fumble through your back pocket prayers. Help me in my unbelief. While everyone around you seems to move on to verse 2 and verse 3 of the hymn that you are too choked up to sing. And you may feel their eyes on you, and you will recognize the concern behind their cheery greetings. We haven't seen you in a while. So good to have you back. And you will know that they are thinking exactly what you used to think about Easter Sunday or Christmas. Nominal, lukewarm, even indifferent. And you won't know how to explain that there is nothing nominal or lukewarm or indifferent about standing in that place of question every day. Staring each one down until you've mustered all the bravery and fortitude and trust it takes to whisper just one of them out loud as you go back to your cell. What if we just made this all up because we're so terrified of the finality of death? And you won't know how to explain why in that moment, when that whisper rises out of your mouth like Jesus from the grave, you feel more alive and awake and resurrected than you have in ages. Because at least it was out, at least it was said, at least it wasn't buried in your chest anymore, clawing for freedom. And if you're lucky, someone will recognize the bravery of the act. If you're lucky, there will be a moment of holy silence before someone wonders out loud if such a question might put a damper on Easter. But if you're not so lucky, if the question gets answered too quickly, or if the silence goes on too long, please know you are not alone. There are other people singing words to hymns they're not sure they believe in today. Other people digging out dresses and suits from the back of their closets today, planning on going to church tomorrow morning. Other people ruining Easter brunch today or tomorrow. Other people just showing up. Sort of like Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and the other women. Just showing up to do what they're supposed to do. And sometimes just showing up, burial spices in our hands, is all it takes to witness a miracle. Blessed Easter to you all, my brothers.